All right, so the goal today, we thought about doing a bit of a different Monday, Super Monday, and to actually give you the mic and discuss everything that's interesting for you. It can be about the Supersonic Superstar that we are running currently, and we have a last few days for you to submit your game, or in any other topic about hyper casual or even beyond that. I promise to try and answer every question that you guys might have about any topic. One small comment: we're a public company, so anything that is non-public information and is internal information of the company, we are not allowed to share as a public company traded in the US. But besides this, I'm happy to answer any question about the hyper-casual world. Are we ready? Cool. So I'll start with the first question. What are the 2-3 keys to success that all previous Superstars winners have? So first of all, I would say that I don't think that there is any specific important thing to do in Superstar that is not important in regular hyper-casual funnel. But if we are looking at the previous Superstars winners, right, either we're looking at Tolman Run or Move Animals or Bridge Race or Escalator or Get Rich, we can see the different strategies that we always recommend to follow when building and submitting a new prototype as part of a competition by Supersonic or any other publisher, or in regular time, right? It's either picking a very strong mechanic and type of game, let's say runner that based on gates, like Tolman Run did by the developer VectorUp, that published with Supersonic already 4 games, and then bring your own creativity into a successful and well-known mechanic that you know that has good CPI, that you know that has good engagement by users, right? We know that runner with gates, if you build it well, it generates good marketability and can generate a good engagement. Now it's all about bringing your own innovative creativity into it and make it work better than previous runners. And VectorUp did it in the previous Superstar. So it's either doing this or merging, for instance, some elements that are successful with innovative mechanics, for instance, escalators, right, that use the multiplier element that worked very, very well back then and gave it a little bit of a different flavor, a new mechanic that we didn't see before, merging different elements into a successful game, or even taking, for instance, Move Animal that is based on a previous game that we published, Move People, just give it a different theme, and we see that it actually drive different users and very good engagement, marketability, etc. So in general, in order to succeed in Supersonic Superstars or in any other competition, I would just recommend to follow what we always recommend to do, is to use things that work, that you see that are working, either on the top charts. We send our partners industry trend every 2 weeks, and then bring your own creativity and innovation into it, trying to build something that is fresh and new to the market. So this was about this. Why less and less hyper-casual hits in the top? Great. So this is a very interesting question. And first of all, I'll say that, again, in general, every time is a bit different, right? There are waves and there are times that things are growing and sometimes that things are more stable. What do we see as an industry, right? And it's public information for everyone. As an industry these days, is that as part of, there are 2 main macro conditions that impacting the entire mobile games ecosystem, and of course the hyper-casual ecosystem as well. Point number 1 is that, thanks God, COVID is beyond us, right? Somewhere in Q1 this year, Omicron variant so far, and I hope that in the future as well, was the last variant that put major lockdowns on many different countries, right? There are many, many negative things about what we've been through during COVID times, but the only positive, I don't know if to call it even a positive thing that happened, is that people played games more. And now there are no more like the lockdowns. Kids are back to school, people are back to work. The DAO and the engagement and the playtime are a bit lower than what we got used to in 2020, 2021, and the beginning of 2022. So this is number one. Number two, and again, I guess that most of you also are proud and aware about it, is that the macroeconomic condition in the world is in a more challenging period of time, right? Inflation goes up, interest rate is going up, and many companies are more careful with their advertising spend, which leads to a bit of a lower CPMs. And this means that ad-based businesses, like if you go to the top companies in the world, like Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat, or even hyper-casual games, have lower LTV because the industry and the ecosystem is making a bit less revenue per impression, right? This is what we are seeing in a macroeconomic related condition. And these two things, of course, impact the entire mobile games ecosystem. But as we see it, we don't see any change in the demand from users for hyper-casual games. Yes, today, when the CPMs are lower and DAO is a bit lower, it's harder to scale than a year ago, but we do see many successful prototypes. We do see many successful launches. We launched few great games in the past 2 months that making good amount of profit. And we believe that this is a condition that is probably only going to get better moving forward. So this definitely impacts the top charts, but we see it as a temporary condition. And regardless to that, by the way, we understand that, and it's true for every industry, definitely in challenging time, is that with strong competition, the need for a strong product is better, right? So today, when CPMs are a bit lower, in order to launch a very successful hit and to make millions of dollars in profit, like we are all aimed to achieve, the product probably needs to be 10, 20% deeper than what it was a year and a half ago, when there was much more traffic because of lockdown and CPMs were higher because of macroeconomic conditions. It just means that if you find a marketable concept and something that you think that we can scale together, then we probably need to invest another 2 or 3 weeks in taking the product itself into a bit of a higher level. It can be in the edge of the range. It can be even taking it into hybrid, although not all games are good fit for it. But even if you keep it fully ad-based game, the emphasis on day 7, day 14 retention should be a bit higher. The emphasis on day 1 retention and playtime and APAPU should be a bit higher, because we need more impressions to generate X LTV, while a year ago you could do with a bit less amount of impressions, the same LTV. So this is this. I'm going one by one. Niv Gold, does it make sense to send a full mockup video for a test while the game build is very basic? Not sure I fully got the question, but I would say the following, Niv, and if I didn't answer it correctly, you are more than welcome to re-ask and rephrase the question. In general, the way that we believe that is the best way to work is, first of all, to share with us the idea for the game. And the reason for that, and one of the advantages that we have as a publisher, and definitely as the biggest publisher in the world these days, is that we see lots of prototypes, lots of games. And in some cases, we can predict before the game is even built if the direction makes sense or not, right? We are seeing many prototypes, we see all the data, we understand what makes more and what makes less. And this is why we usually believe that this is the first stage. And the second stage is after going live with a test, or if you are working directly with the platform, going live with a test, we want the MVP to be as minimal as possible, right? Up to 10 levels, and just to understand how the different users react to this type of game with your creative take, with the mechanic itself, with the execution. and to invest as little as possible, hopefully not more than a week in the prototype before making a decision whether it's worth extra investment. Utkarsh Vaidya, sorry if I didn't pronounce it right. Hey, your thoughts on the changing market? Are you focusing on hybrid casual? Prediction for required KPIs for hybrid CPI, Playtime day 1 and day 7. Cool. So I think that this is a very good question because it's a very hot topic these days. Not like we see all publishers and many of the developers are speaking about hyper casual, hybrid, etc. And I'll say the pros and cons. And again, I think that hybrid casual is a big title, and sometimes it's very hard to analyze what is hybrid, what is hyper, what is casual, what is an IIP-based game. So I would say the following. First of all, different type of games behave differently. For example, a simulation game or a TikTok-based game today is probably going to have a bigger target audience than a puzzle game, right? And this is why CPI and volume is going to be bigger than a puzzle game. CPI is going to be lower, volume is going to be bigger. And this is why the LTV needed in order to scale profitably and make significant profit. And in my eyes, significant profit will be more than $1 million, but we want to make, of course, more than that. And hopefully to get to the $10, $20 million, which is also possible and was generated by our biggest hits. But different type of games require different KPIs. Hybrid as a title, for instance, if you take a typical puzzle game, take one of our first launches, Sort It. This game is 98% ad-based game, right? IIP is only no ads. There is no real economy and in-app purchases behind the scene. And still, people will call it a hybrid game, mainly because the LTV is very, very strong. It's few dollars. This is why we can live with a very high CPI. And this is thanks to a very, very strong engagement, playtime, retention, amount of content, progression, etc. This is one type of hybrid. You can call it hybrid. You can call it hyper casual puzzle with very strong engagement and very high LTV. On the other hand, you can look at an idle game that has 25% share of voice for in-app purchases with a deeper store and deeper economy, also as hybrid. So what I would say is that, first of all, different sub-genres or different type of products require different KPIs. And I think that while runner and simulation and ASMR-based and all of these usually have better marketability and they can live with a lower LTV, puzzle, idle, etc. has lower target audience, and this is why they require higher LTV. You can achieve higher LTV by having a strong retention, a strong playtime, or by having a deeper economy and deeper store and higher conversion of in-app purchases. You can get it in these two different ways. So it's very hard for me to just say what hybrid require and what hyper casual and what is hybrid and what is hyper casual. I just think that we always need to ask, what is the target audience? How big is it? As it is bigger, then we can live with a lower LTV. As it is more limited, then we need a higher LTV, right? A very narrative RPG game probably have a $7 CPI, so it needs $10 LTV, but a puzzle can live with a $2 CPI, so it really, really depends on the target audience that dictates what the LTV is. And in general, these days, right, when ad-based is and CPMs are a bit lower, conversion to make an in-app purchase is a bit lower as well, right? People spending a bit less of money. The macroeconomic is more challenging than a year ago. Then regardless if you are building an ad-based simulation game or a half ads, half IIP idle game, the require for a better product is there, right? In order to make millions of dollars in profit, you need 10%, 20% higher LTV versus a year ago. You can achieve it, as I said, by having much deeper economy in a purchase or by keep it ads based only with stronger late retention. And it's mainly about content, level design, progression. I would say that this is the core, and now it depends on the game. We need to fit the right monetization into it. But again, I don't think that nothing changes in the fundamental. A strong ASMR or simulation game will still make profit, right? Either it will require a bit of better LTV or it will make 10% lower profit. It still make profit even in these challenging times. And this is how we look at the industry. We don't think that everybody needs now to invest half of their time of building the economy in IP, because then you will lose the efficiency and the magic that also is a big element for the hyper-casual ecosystem. Mendene Mangu asks, what is the simplest way to get a low CPI? This is the magic question, right? If I knew the answer, I probably wouldn't be here. I would be making prototypes now. But in general, again, I would say that regardless to how talented and creative you are, luck plays 30-40% of the success of a prototype, right? There is need for luck, and because luck plays, and by the way, it makes sense, because what means good CPI? It means that you actually manage to build a prototype that is interesting for thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, American in different gender, different ages, different criteria, because we test in the US, and it's almost impossible to get it right? It's very, very hard from a personal perspective to get into the mind of many different people in different age, different gender, different location. This is why luck will always play a significant role in this equation. But having said that, looking at the top charts, see what worked today, looking for inspiration for teams that generate good engagement, right? This is probably the most scientific way to do it. If you go to TikTok and you find a viral video that was shared and liked by tens of millions of people in the world, probably it's going to be engaged and marketable. Now there is a question whether someone built it already, and if not, whether you'll be able to build a real game from this very interesting video, because sometimes we see great prototypes with great CPI that just cannot cross the 15% day one retention, because it's very, very hard to gamify the interesting experience that there was in the video. But looking at trends, be creative, look for content that generates a lot of engagement in different platforms, and these can help you to reduce the luck element, which will always still exist, and to try and to make it scientific as much as possible. Okay, my marketing says we are getting a lot of questions. Let's move faster. I'll try. Metehan Demler, it's very hard. Okay, let's use your private name. Metehan, sorry. Hey, the Superstar competition is about CPI threshold. However, the CPM values are a little bit higher currently. What is your strategy for this case? Do we look at IPM values or CTR values? Great. So this is a great question, and I'll try to be short, but it's a very, very interesting topic, and we can discuss hours about it. Predicting marketability of a prototype is very, very hard. As you said, CPI depends on CPM, depends on different users and budget, etc. What we usually do is we test in a few different stages. We start with a test with Facebook. We want to see the general first interaction to understand if there is a potential or not. If yes, we are expanding the test. We're testing in TikTok. We're testing in Iron Source. In Iron Source, for instance, we are looking only on IPM. We don't care about current CPMs. It doesn't impact the result of the test. We're looking only on IPM. IPM is installs per 1,000 impressions. It means how well your creative converts from an impression to install. So we're doing many, many things. We're looking at age split. We're looking at gender. We're looking at placements. We're looking at amount of creatives. We're looking at very, very different elements to try and predict the marketability. So we believe that the process we've built in the past 2 years today helps you to go beyond the current trend in CPM and to be more accurate in your marketability prediction. Next question by Abbas. I'm getting playtime of 25 minutes and retention of day 1, 30, day 2, 17, but not able to figure out how to lower CPI. What should we look at in general to reduce CPI for such a game? So it's very, very hard to answer it because I have no idea what game is it, but we have a section about creatives and what creative guidance you need to follow in order to make sure that you are at least picking the best takes and the best videos out of your gameplay to try and lower CPI. Sometimes the theme that you picked, the mechanic that you picked, is just not interesting enough, and it will be hard, and there will be a limit to how lower the CPI can get. But I will try at least to follow the guidance of the best guidance for creatives to make sure that I'm doing best there and see what CPI it leads to. Next one. Utkarsh, why is there a massive difference in CPI between iOS and Android tests? I have tested over 3 games with a difference of around 20 cents after iOS buffer time following ATT. The reason is that the CPMs on iOS and Android are different, right? So again, what leads to CPM is the ROI that advertisers see, right? If they see in iOS more revenue per user of in-app purchase, then they are willing to pay more for a user in iOS, and then the average level of CPM is higher in iOS, and then it leads to a higher CPI, of course. But it really depends on the subgenre, etc. It totally makes sense that there will be a difference between iOS and Android, either because of the type of the users, right? We know that, for instance, for puzzle, iOS users tend to make more downloads. Simulation, many times it works better on Android, but it can be very different between different subgenres. Next one. Where can you go find concepts that are currently having a low CPI? I don't think, again, no one, if someone has a low CPI, probably doesn't want to share it with you because he's working on the game. What you can do is maybe to speak with your publisher that you are partnering with and see if he has failed prototype that had good CPI but never meet the in-game metrics, and maybe they are willing to share it with you, and then you can get a shot to try and nail the KPIs and take advantage of the good CPI that never ended up being a game. Kuri Leonard guest. In the case of making a hybrid casual, it is strong point being retention and playtime. Does the minimal approach, low content, max 10 levels, still apply for testing? Okay, so you're actually asking what is the different stages of hybrid. And again, I would say that hybrid is a big title, because again, I don't know if when you say hybrid, I know if you are referring to a game that make at least 25-30% of its LTV from in-app purchase, or are you referring to a game that is fully ad-based but have a very strong day 30 retention? Because all of these can be hybrid. In my eyes, hybrid is a game that has an LTV at around $2 to $4, right? This is how I would define what is hybrid casual, right? So while hyper casual is LTV between 50 cents to $1.50, hybrid will be somewhere between 2 to 4. Casual will be 4 to 7, depends on the game, and then you have midcore and other genres with much higher LTV. And in general, I would say that yes, if you are bidding a hybrid casual game, meaning a game that is going to have $2 to $4 LTV, then you can live with a higher CPI or lower marketability, right? It makes sense. But first of all, you need to be sure that you are going to be able to get to this $2 to $4 LTV. For instance, if you are building an ASMR game, even if you believe that you will build it as a hybrid casual, I don't think that it's likely that you'll be able to take a ASMR-based game and get to $3 LTV, right? So if you are building a subgenre that usually is a low LTV subgenre, then you need to have a very low CPI in order to make profitable and scale. If you're going for a subgenre, for instance, idle or puzzle or a deeper action game that can get to $2 to $4 LTV, then yes, you can aim for a bit of a higher CPI or lower marketability, but you need to understand it's probably going to take you longer to build this game, meaning that regardless, you're going to take it into a ad-based only with very strong engagement and very strong late retention, or you're going to add a deeper meta with 30%, 40% IAP, revenue share of voice. It's going to take you probably 6-7 months to get to this level of a prototype, at least, right? If not more than that. Again, depends on what level of a game you are planning to build. And if you are taking into consideration, meaning you are picking a subgenre that can get to the $2 to $4 LTV, and you know that you are able to be committed to build and to invest and to take the risk, right? Part of the interesting thing about hyper casual is that you are fail quick and fail cheap. On hybrid casual and definitely in casual, it takes longer and you are taking higher risk, and you can find yourself working on a game for a year and then drop it. And if you are in the right subgenre and you are in the right mindset, then yes, you can start with still with 10 levels MVP. Even if the CPI or marketability is not as good as you hoped, it still can work as long as you are falling into these two buckets. Cool. Patrick, right? How are the Facebook ads set up for a test? USA global audience targeting. You are asking about how we are testing, so it's a bit different between a test and between the first test and later test. But in general, for the very first test, we want to do zero targeting on the US because we want to understand how the broad audience react to this prototype or concept or game, right? We don't want to target the very best audience for your game because it probably means that it's a very small audience. And then once we start scaling, CPI will climb high and we'll be surprised and find out that the marketability is not as strong as we hoped. So this is why we are doing no targeting. Was the 10 to 20 million earning or profit for a top game? I can say that for Supersonic, our mega hits needs to generate between 10 to 20, $25 million in profit, right? Revenue minus UA. This is what we aim to achieve with the mega hit, hyper casual mega hit, and this is what we achieved with several of our games. What's the average CPI you are seeing across prototype being tested on Facebook? So it's very, very different. Again, I guess that the average CPI, and I don't have yesterday data, but I guess that the average CPI is around $1. But we are adjusting our benchmarks to what happened in the market. What does it mean? It means that if CPM is higher, right, then higher CPI still means strong marketability. If CPM is lower, then we need much lower CPI in order to stand for lower strong marketability. So we are adjusting our goals according to what's happened in the entire platform. And as I said, we are not looking at CPI only. We understood a couple of months ago already that CPI doesn't tell the full picture. And if you are following the CPI only on Facebook, you're probably going to continue with unmarketable games and drop marketable games. And this is why we expanded our marketability testing process to be much beyond CPI on Facebook. We're looking at many more KPIs on Facebook. We're looking at TikTok. We're looking at Iron Source. We're looking at creative conversion. We're looking at many, many things. We combine all of them and we give a marketability grade to your prototype. And we know internally what is going to be on average, plus minus the needed CPI for scale. And then we need to think, can we get LTV that is 30, 40% higher than this needed CPI on scale? Of course, it's not science and we can be wrong as well. But so far, we're much more right than wrong. And this is what made us the biggest hyper-casual publisher in less than 3 years. Fatih asked, would combining different TikTok trends in a single game impact CPI and LTV on TikTok-based hyper-casual game? So I would say, and again, with so many this type of game, is to take a very strong team that is popular on TikTok and then have kind of many mini games with different mechanic, maybe to take mechanic of games that are successful and in the store and generating good engagement, just connect them all with your own marketable team. It can work. This type of games usually have a bit of a lower LTV, but they might have a very strong marketability and they have a lot of flexibility with the marketability, right? One of the things that we are looking on the prototype is what is the creative flexibility we are going to have, right? Supersonic creative team is about 35 people that are doing videos, playables, interactive end cards. We are generating thousands of videos a month. And as we have more flexibility with our creative production, we probably have better chances to have more creative winners, to keep the CPI low, even to lower CPI, and to make more profit in the 3, 6, 9, 1 year and more than that. What we find out, by the way, and you probably see it as well in the top charts, is that unlike in the past where people thought that hyper-casual games are very short, have very short life, we see that some of our games that we've launched in 2020, still 2 years, 2.5 years after today, are generating significant profit, significant revenue, significant amount of installs 2.5 years after. Big part of it is because they have good creative flexibility that allows us to be innovative and to invent the wheel every time, again and again, for 2.5 years, and to work hard on either remaining the CPI on the same level, or CPI probably is growing because we are buying hundreds of millions of users, but to slow down the increase in CPI. And while the developer works very, very hard on increase the LTV, if he is able to improve the LTV better than the increase in CPI that we are fighting on our marketing side, then this game can live for 2 years, 3 years, and more than that, and generate a very significant profit. Okay, let's see. I need to breathe for a second. Next one, Richard. Would you consider it is better to have a shop to purchase items or new players in game to achieve better retention rate? Also, are coins or rewarded ads are better option? So first of all, I think that, again, in order to get better retention and following better LTV, there are a few things that are needed, right? Marketability will be more about the team that you picked, the mechanic that you picked, and again, camera angle, of course, and the video type, and many of these elements are going to dictate your marketability. Then you have the day zero playtime, day one retention. It's more about how fun the game is, how fun the mechanic is, how well the first few levels are, etc. But then you are getting into the day 3, day 7, day 14, day 30, and if we're speaking about hybrid, then you're in day 60, day 90, and beyond that. In order to get to this level, I think that few things are needed. First of all, it's content, right? It's the amount of content that your game has, and usually this is one of the challenges for hyper-casual developers that are usually more small in terms of team size, right? And to produce a lot of content is challenging. So this is point number one that you need to consider. If you are aiming for, let's agree between us that hybrid casual is a game that is generating LTV between $2 to $4, regardless to 40% IAP or 1% ad-based, in each way you can get there. But hybrid is a game with a very strong LTV. It usually requires, first of all, a lot of content, right? And this is challenge number one. Challenge number two is the level design, because just putting in content that is not interesting and evolving over time and designed right is not going to keep the user engaged with the game. Then we're looking at, again, and it's very, very connected to the level design, is the progression, right? So you have a lot of content, but how do I progress? After 7 days, what is still interesting for me? Why would I come back to the game? And then beyond that, it's going to be the meta, the economy, the different features that bring back the user and allow more experience and more type of entertainment within the game. If you are following all of these, then probably you're going to have a better engagement and potentially a better LTV. Next one. When looking for inspiration from charts, is it more important to look at top charts or top new charts? So I would say that again, different. Every chart gives you a different observation. First of all, if you want to understand which games were really successful, don't look at either of these. Look at how long this game remained in a relevant place in the top charts. And by the way, it doesn't mean only the top 10, right? Because as I said, for an idle game or a puzzle game that can make $2 or $3 per user, with less users, you can get to this $50 million revenue, right? Because they're making more revenue per user. For a simulation game, you need much more installs, much more users to get to the same $50 million in revenue. So again, look at the subgenre of the game, try to understand how strong the LTV is. It's definitely doable, and see how long, how many installs did it generate, right? Usually you don't have transparency into installs numbers, but if you're using data AI or Sensor Tower, you can get prediction for this. If not, and you're just following the top charts, you can see how long this game was in the top charts and where. Top 10, top 100, top 200. A game that was in the top charts for a very long period of time means that it's probably a very successful game that made a very good amount of profit, right? Sometimes we see games that top the charts, but fall after 2 or 3 weeks. My bet is these games almost didn't make profit at all. They scaled, maybe because the prediction for the LTV was a bit too optimistic. Maybe there was less data. And after the publisher understood that the LTV is not backing up the CPI, he reduced spend, and then the game fall in amount of installs. So again, to understand the strength of the game from profit perspective, try to predict how many installs it generates, look at the type of game to understand the LTV, and you can understand probably what is the revenue number this game generated. Then looking at the top charts and top new helps you to understand the hottest trends, right? It still doesn't promise you that this game is going to stay in the top charts for 1 year. But on the other hand, you don't want to react to the market in a 1-year delay, because you want to wait and see if this game stays for a full year to understand if it's good. So probably, but by the way, even a game that pops the charts for 3 weeks and fall probably had good marketability. Maybe the LTV wasn't there. Maybe you can still get inspired by the team, by the creative, by the innovation, by the mechanic. The fact that this game failed doesn't mean that you can't take good elements out of this game, because every game that is topping the charts have some good elements out of it. If not, you would fail in a very, very early phase in the publishing funnel. Another question. I am a solo hyper-casual developer. I tested 7 games with Supersonic, and the least CPI I got is 0.38. Should I continue and I'll get a hit while learning the market and so on? And how much should I put into it? I wish there was an easy question. So first of all, again, many of you are in this market for a while. And as I said, because luck plays a big role here, whether it's 20% or 40%, depends how professional are you with analyzing the market and picking the right concept. It can take a while, right? It can take some developers that we work with nailed it in their first 5 tests. Others, it took them dozens together. And we believe that as long as you are failing quick and cheap, and you are optimizing and following the right stages, you're probably going to find some success in one stage. Now, definitely it depends on your expertise level, on your execution, product execution, marketability analysis. But again, seven games is not that much, and it's very, very hard for me. If you give me 7 games, it's very, very hard for me to tell you if you are a strong developer or not, because again, in 7 games, the luck element still plays a big role. If you tested 100 games and none of them was beyond 80 cents, then probably you are doing something wrong. But after 7 tests, it can definitely be mainly about the luck. Just make sure to follow the right guidance and stages. And if you do it, sooner or later, you're probably going to find good results. Cool. Should hyper-casual developers be excited about the Unity Ironsource merger? Do you think Supersonic will have an advantage in the market in the related to this acquisition soon? Okay, so I'll be careful what can I say and what cannot I say. But first of all, the merge is not closed yet, right? So both shareholders voted in favor of the deal, but the deal is not closed. It's expected to be closed somewhere in November. And up until it is closed and it's final, we are 2 independent companies, and this is how we act. So I can't really react on this. I can say that I think that, again, if this deal will be closed and if we'll be able to join forces, we both believe that 1 + 1 can be much more than 2. We both believe, Ironsource and Unity, and of course Supersonic as part of it, that there is great synergies between us, and we believe that together we are stronger than separated, and this is the reason behind this deal. And yes, I believe that it will bring a lot of value to the market, to different publishers and developers in hyper-casual and casual and the mobile games and even beyond that. And we're very, very excited about this merge. But again, until it's being closed, we are working independently. And after the deal will be closed, if the deal will be closed, we'll be happy to share how we see it and what are the pros and advantages and synergies we believe we can implement together for Supersonic and Unity. Cool. Is Android Play Store test enough, or we need to test on iOS as well? I would say that for the very first test, it's fine to test on one store. Again, sometimes there is some difference between them, but usually it won't be very, very major one. If we see, and again, the goal of the first test, whether you're doing it on Android or whether you're doing it on iOS, is to understand if there is some potential in the prototype. We are not looking for perfection in your first test. We are looking to understand if there is some potential. If yes, then we expand the test into much more areas, the other operating system, other channels, more creative, to be smarter in our evaluation, whether this game can make significant profit or not. Patrick, how many users do you need to buy in order to find out if a product can scale big? So first of all, I would say that nothing is guaranteed, and in some cases we are wrong, like anyone else. And as you have more data, your prediction is more accurate. What does it mean? It means that after a first test, right, we're probably investing $200, $300, $400 in your very first test. It's very limited budget, right? This is what makes sense to invest in a first test. It's a very limited amount of data, right? Probably a few hundreds of users. We can have a very, very broad estimation whether there is maybe a potential or not. If we do see a potential, we're expanding, as I said, more channels, more installs. Then after a bit of a deeper analysis, probably a few thousands of installs, we can predict quite well, not 100% accuracy. And by the way, we are going to launch a feature soon. So if you are working with Supersonic platform, then you are going to be very, very excited, because the platform is going to change soon. And in the prototyping platform, we are going to add a marketability score and prediction and accuracy range based on the data that we have, that is dynamic and changing, of how strong your marketability of your game, right? It's going to be live hopefully by end of this year, in the next 2 months. If not, email my VP product, Erez. He will be happy to answer you. But there, as we have more data, the accuracy level goes up. So as I said, first test, hundreds of users, broad understanding, maybe there is potential, maybe not. A richer test, then we have better understanding of the marketability power, but we still have no idea about the LTV, right? Probably you have only 10, 15 level. Probably day one retention and day zero playtime is limited. It's very, very hard to understand what amount of playtime, retention, APAPU, and LTV we're going to get to in the next 2, 3, 4 months that we're going to work on the game. After we are working on the game 3, 4 months, we have LTV and we have tens of thousands of installs. Yes, this is relatively easy to understand how profitable the game can be, but probably it's, again, we want to get a prediction sooner than that, more data, more certainty, and we are using the most advanced technology out there and a lot of experience that we gained because we tested tens of thousands of games already to be able to predict as much as possible, as early as possible. Not an easy task at all. All right. I'm going to be a bit late for the competition. Some level design. Could I still take part if I'm 3-4 days late? No, you cannot. But if you wrote this question, it means that you are not listening and you are in YouTube while we are doing this webinar. Don't spend another many days on level design before making the first test. We don't care that much about the level design. We don't care about that much about day one retention on the first test. We want to get an initial look. But again, we try to understand if it's marketable. If eventually the game is going to be a very high CPI, it doesn't help that you spend a lot of your time and resources on the level design. So save this work, go live with the test before the competition ends. If the game shows marketability potential, then spend your extra time on the level design together with us. We'll help you get there. What is the simplest way to find teams that are training in the US? Top charts, successful games, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, anything that shows what the mass audience like, right? Top charts means top charts in the US means a lot of installs in the US. Very viral TikTok video means a lot of TikTok users in the US. Same for YouTube. Everything that is engaged with many, many, many users shows marketability potential. Generally, how much time it takes to reach a break-even point for launched game, and do you somehow support developers financially meanwhile? So if we are publishing a game together, right, and if we decided to publish the game, then we believe that this game can make an interesting profit, right? We are not going to publish a game that is making zero profit because we are, again, profit-oriented company. So yes, if we decide to publish a game together and up until this game is actually profitable, because again, remember, we are paying the CPI today and making the LTV in 7, 14, 30, 60 days. So it can take time, and definitely when UA goes up, then the break-even point delays, then you can definitely help financial with minimum guarantees, etc. We want you to be able to work and improve the game while we're scaling it. As long as we believe that it is profitable and it's going to be profitable, we are here to help you to get to this place. Let's see, how should, wait, finished with all the above, okay. Can we have retention case studies every week, please? How the retention was improved of a specific game over time. Case studies, how playtime was improved in a specific game. Cool. So first of all, I don't know if you guys are aware, but in our website, supersonic.com, we have a knowledge hub where we have a lot of case studies, thought leaderships, PRs, and in many of these case studies, we are discussing the different KPI, retention, playtime. What did we do to improve it, etc. So please go there and see. We're trying to release a new case study every 2 weeks. Every time that we have a successful game, we try to release a new case study that discuss the advantages and the strengths of this game, so we can take inspiration out of it. So definitely go ahead and do it. Regardless to that, and again, not all the successful games, unfortunately, are by Supersonic, although I wish it would. I would recommend to go to other publishers. Even if you are working only with Supersonic, go to the knowledge center of other publishers, analyze other publishers' games in the top charts, see how they build their game, what is the mechanic, theme, progression, art, and take inspiration. Just make sure to pick the right games to be inspired from, a really successful games, and not game that pop the charts and falls down quite quick. But as long as you're picking the right games, you can definitely take a good inspiration, and of course, follow our knowledge hub. What are the most important KPI to look at to kill a game ASAP? For example, good CTR, but retention stays at 35%. So again, I think that if you want to fail quick and fail cheap, it's the marketability side, right? If a game is not marketable, and again, as I said in the beginning, marketable is a question of what type of game is it, for simulation or puzzle or idle. Very marketable, medium marketable, or non-marketable are different numbers and different KPIs. But with limited and very smaller investment in the game itself, an MVP, you can already predict the marketability strength of it, and you can fail quick and fail cheap very, very well. Don't work too hard on the game before understanding the marketability power of it. Once you get there, then of course it's usually going to be first to improve the day 0, day 1 engagement, then in day 3, then in day 7, then in day 14 and beyond, right? And as I said, it's going to be from the main mechanic and theme into content, level design, progression, meta, features, and many things that can help you to get into the maximum amount of engagement and of course LTV. What do we have? What should be IPM for a good creative? Cool. So again, here as well, IPM is what when we are doing testing on Iron Source network, we are looking at average IPM, we are looking at IPM distribution, and many different criteria. But in general, I would say that different subgenre need different KPIs. But a typical in the lower LTV side, hyper casual, you want to see the IPM of 30 plus, right? A 30 plus IPM means that even probably a 60 cents, 70 cents LTV can make good amount of profit if you have this IPM. If you are building a more deeper game, then we can live also with the IPM of 15, for example. For idle, 15 IPM will be very good and very strong marketability power. So it really depends on the type of subgenre. Not all hyper casual or hybrid casual are the same. Different hyper casual subgenre are different. Hybrid is different. So it really depends what game are you building, and then you need to adjust your KPI to the type of game that you are building. Johan, will Supersonic help developer develop a game further after publishing? For sure. For sure we are doing it even before publishing. So it really depends on the developer needs. If there is a potential and we decide to go and try to publish this game together, again, we are together in this boat. We're either making money together, making profit together, or not making profit together. So it's a mutual success or mutual fail. If we believe that there is potential there, then we want to join forces as much as possible. And now it depends what the developer needs. Some developer needs X, other developers needs Y. Some developer need just an experienced game designer that will help them to design the game in the right way. Others will need a deeper help, maybe even from devs and artists. Others will only need the creative and marketability side. So Supersonic as a company, and we've been like that from our very first day, is very flexible. We try to adjust ourselves to what the developer needs. We don't have one process, and we're very flexible on doing different processes to help the developer succeed the most. Your success is our success. Again, this is the profit share business. Cool. What do you think is the future of narrative games like Become a Queen or Perfect Life, because there are hardly studios making those type of games? So does it mean it is a very niche market? If that's the case, is it beneficial to make narrative since it has almost no competition? So again, it's a good question. I think that first of all, definitely narrative games brings something fresh, and in a way this helps them because there is less competition, right? If you are building a runner, probably there are hundreds of runners competing with you any given day. You need to be very strong and very good, and you can be like this in order to succeed. If you are narrative, there is a bit of less competition, but you still following the bucket where you need the CPI and the LTV to be balanced with each other. The challenge on narrative games, it takes longer period of time to add more content, to optimize progression, to optimize level design, etc. And here as well, it's a question of what fits you as a studio. A small studio, for instance, one-man show, I wouldn't recommend him going for a narrative game, because even if you will nail a marketable concept, it will be almost impossible for him to build enough content and to build the full day 1, day 7, day 14 and beyond in a reasonable period of time. But if you are a bigger studio and more experienced one, and you have the right skill set, then it can be definitely a very interesting niche to go and to be special. But again, still you need to be objective, and you still need to analyze the marketability power of this game to see what is your LTV, and to understand how marketable the game, how profitable the game is going to be. Our agenda in Supersonic, and this was always the same since our very first day, is to be transparent with you. We want you to see the data, right? When you are publishing a game with Supersonic, you can see the marketability power. You can see what creatives work. It's all in the dashboard. You can see what is the marketability grade, what CPI or placement it got on Facebook, what IPM it got on Iron Source, what is the LTV, what is the retention, what is the amount of impressions of interstitial. You have all the data there. We help you to read it. We read it with you, but you need to be able, and I recommend you to develop this skill set, because if you want to become in a later phase an independent gaming company and to grow your company, you need to be able to take the responsibility and the right decisions by yourself. So even if you're picking this game or another, even if it's a narrative or a runner, unique or red ocean game, it still falls for the marketability power versus the LTV. And you need to understand very, very well what is the marketability power. In our new dashboard we're going to launch by end of this year, when you're going to get the marketability grade and the certainty level, we're going to get between 1 to 5. Right? If you have 5, you can live with lower LTV. 4, you need a bit of a higher LTV. 3, you need a higher LTV, etc. And you have your LTV. You can see it in our dashboard. And again, if you go for a concept that is 3, regardless if it's a narrative, idle, clicker, or a runner, then you need to understand that this is the level of LTV you need to get to together with us. And if not, it will be hard to make it very profitable. We ran out of time. Cool, guys. It was a very intense hour. I spoke a lot. I hope that I managed to answer like 90% of the question, I think. Feel free to reach out to ask me or any other of Supersonic employees more questions if you guys have. We are here. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for years, and we're going to help as many developers as possible to make profit, to scale their game, and to build great